Welcome to the panel on alternative birth locations. We're going to talk about the controversy around these sites. The first person to present is Lynn Griesemer. She's the author of The Unassisted Homebirth, An Act of Love, which was published in 1998. Also of Your Body, Your Birth, Secrets for a Satisfying and Successful Birth, published in 2007. She's a mother of 6 children, 4 were born in the hospital and 2 at home unassisted, with no midwife, doctor, or present, just her husband, and intentionally born at home, of course. Lynn believes that the unassisted home birth is the ultimate liberating feminist choice in childbirth, and you can read more about her and her work at unassistedchildbirth.com. Thank you so much for joining us, Lynn.
Good morning. I think why we're really here today, we're here for a symposium on birth practices and reproductive rights. So we need to keep in mind that we're really here to talk about freedom and rights. And what I advocate, unassisted home birth, is perhaps the most criticized, the most patronized, the most marginalized, and even the most penalized of choices of birth. In fact, there's a lot of blame that gets thrown around at women who have unfortunate outcomes in unassisted home birth. And so what is unassisted home birth? Unassisted home birth is giving childbirth without a midwife or a doctor, without paying anybody, without formulating a contract. It's really 100% freedom. It could be with your husband, it could be alone, it could be inviting your children, it could be inviting a friend or two. But again, you're not paying someone to manage or direct your birth. And basically, you really could say that it is the ultimate reproductive right in childbirth to have an unassisted home birth. There's 100% no interference from other people. The only interference that goes on is that chatter in your mind, what is holding you back, maybe some fear, maybe some pain, maybe various marital issues, things like that. So we're really talking about eliminating any kind of interference whatsoever when we talk about unassisted home birth. And really, as women, we have the right to create a birth environment as we see fit that is commensurate with our birth philosophy. In other types of birth, you're giving something up. When you hire a midwife, you're kind of having to go along with some state regulations, maybe partially her philosophy. But really, unassisted home birth gives you the opportunity to create that birth environment that is really, really equal to what your philosophy of birth is. And that's why it's so appealing. And birth does require a here and now focus. It requires being in the body and in the mind, spiritual issues, emotional issues. And these are very appealing things about an unassisted home birth. Today I want to cover the current criticism of unassisted home birth. I want to talk a little bit about the cultural expectations for birthing women and reasons why families choose unassisted home birth, and then maybe leave a little hope for the future, what we can do, because this is such a radical choice. Now, the statistics vary. Less than maybe 5%, 3% will choose to have a home birth, and that usually means with a midwife. So even a really smaller section of that will choose unassisted home birth. So, what is the current criticism of unassisted home birth? Well, I've been studying and researching this topic for about 13 or 14 years, and I see the same things happening over and over. Unassisted home birth came big into the media about 2 years ago. Starting in Europe, they refer to it as free birth. Also in Australia, you're likely to hear them talk about unassisted home birth as free birth. And in this country, free birth is sometimes used, but it's more commonly known as unassisted childbirth, or UC, and also unassisted home birth, unassisted birth. So, a lot of the media stories go like this. You'll see something on TV or read about something, and it'll be like this fascination. Wow, this couple, they're so courageous. They had an unassisted home birth. And then it's shortly followed by a doctor with stern warnings. Oh, well, they were lucky. Birth can turn into an emergency in the blink of an eye without any explanation whatsoever. Then the story goes on unquestioned, and they're talking about maybe accusing unassisted birthers of putting your baby at risk for some romantic notion of childbirth, and that they are selfish. They want this romantic experience, and you're putting that baby at risk. So unassisted birthers are criticized, and they're scolded, and they're considered absurd for not going to the hospital. Why should we go backwards? when we've made such progress? Why would someone want to deal with pain when they can take medication? Oh, you unassisted birthers are selfish. So at this point, unassisted birthers might feel defensive. They might not want to share. There's a lot of quiet humility going on within the unassisted home birth ranks because of this criticism from everywhere and everyone, even family members. But I want to stop the tape in the middle of that story. The public accepts it, watches it, and then they move on to another story. But we have to criticize two things. These doctors are getting away with saying, oh, birth can turn to an emergency in the blink of an eye. Well, if any smart woman educating herself about birth will find that that is not true. Birth does not become an emergency for some unknown reason. There's usually some reason. And when I was doing my research as to what would be my fears about having an unassisted birth, my fear was hemorrhage, because that's what doctors, oh, you could hemorrhage, oh, and if you better be in a hospital, you better have somebody there to help you, qualified person to deal with this. Well, I found out that the main cause of hemorrhage was after the baby is born. The hospital attendants are in a hurry to get that placenta out, and that's really what is causing the hemorrhage. So not the birth itself. But the public will agree with this fear that, oh wow, birth can turn to an emergency in a heartbeat. And the other thing that we are accused of is that we are seeking some romantic ideal of a birth experience, and that we are selfish in doing so. And I want to propose that it is not selfish. Most human beings do not really want pain, but we have to prepare to deal with pain and discomfort if it should arise. I could say that a woman is selfish if she goes into a hospital and just says, give me my epidural, I don't want pain. Meanwhile, that epidural and the effects of it pass on to the baby, can pass on to her, and can cause problems. I could also say a woman is selfish if she is due January 2nd and she tells her doctor, I think we ought to just set up the C-section appointment for December 23rd because it's convenient, I have relatives coming into town, the holidays are here, December 23rd would be a good date. But I don't say that people are selfish in doing that. I just want us to refute these stories and think about not accepting what is given to us in the media. Additional criticism coming to unassisted birthers are from supporters of midwifery, and that's a hard one to take. Some of us would hope that midwives could be our friend and could help us out in situations where we needed help, maybe prenatally or maybe if we wanted help. But midwives lately are distancing themselves from unassisted birthers for whatever reason. I won't get into guessing why that is. So there's a lot of common ground, though. The midwives believe that birth is private, is intimate, is a womanly experience that should take place in the home, but with their guidance, with their expertise. And so now I want to move into the topic of the cultural expectations for childbirth. There is this expectation that birth needs an expert, that we do need helping hands, that we do need somebody who knows more about birth than we do. Well, why can't we educate ourselves and learn enough about birth? We will find that birth is not risky, it is not dangerous, and many of us believe that we do not need anybody to help us with our childbirth experience, that we have developed this kind of philosophy and worked through all of the issues as best we can, enough to develop the competence. So there's also this expectation that birth is mainly of the body, that birth is tangible and it's material. So you have women asking the average questions of, when is your due date? Do you know the sex of your baby? Can I see the picture of the ultrasound? Oh, have you decorated your nursery yet? And all of those questions are so superficial to be asking a pregnant woman as she is preparing for such a huge event. But these are the cultural expectations, and these are the questions that are commonly asked, and a lot of people don't go much further than asking those questions. Now, there's also the cultural expectation that really we have the assumption that childbirth is unpleasant, it's messy, it's scary, it's painful, and it's potentially dangerous, and so that it is best left to the expert. So that is why you will not see too many people turning to unassisted home birth, and you still don't see enough people turning to a midwife-delivered home birth.